Thank you very much for your attention again. It's my pleasure to be able to introduce the Deputy Prime Minister, Michael McCormack, to speak to you briefly this evening. Briefly, he says. Yes, that's enough. So I'll speak for a long time. We've suggested 45 minutes for me and 10 for him. Oh, thanks very much. See? That's even better, Michael. That was two people clapping, yeah. Michael, you may recall, for those who were at our 2015 conference, came to the Gold Coast and spoke. And in that year, I think about almost 1,200 people died. And as you know, 1,200 people died last year. So there's been more activity, more economic growth, and but we are not gaining, if you like, in our quest. And as Michael said then, no one should die on the road. And of course we know that, but we really struggle to get ourselves to that situation. And he said to me a few weeks ago, when we were doing this national inquiry into the road safety strategy, he said, "Do you really think it's possible? Do you really think it's possible to get to zero?" And he said, haven't you got some examples? You know, haven't you got a couple of examples of where it might work? Can you tell me where it's actually working? And I have to say, off the cuff, I wasn't able to do so at that time. So I went away with a little challenge to see if I could find some examples. And I mentioned, I think, in the opening session the other day that, you know, I did find 900 towns or 990 towns in Japan, Europe, and the USA where they'd had a year of no fatalities. And I'd said to Bernard Carlin, well, in New South Wales, have we got some local government areas? And Bernard said, yes, we do. And you recall when he spoke, he said there are 27 local government areas, and I actually have the list here. It's true. It's possible that there are some areas where municipalities or local government areas have achieved zero fatalities. That's fantastic. Success is possible, and so it's fantastic to be able to stand here tonight and say to you that that type of success is possible. And I think in terms of the National Strategy Review, or the review of the National Road Safety Strategy, which we all spent, four of us spent a lot of time on just recently, as Jeremy said the other day, for something like the cost of half the coffee break at the Royal Commission, you know, we did a great job to put together 12 recommendations. And as Jeremy said, I think the other day to you all, that inquiry made it very clear that we failed to implement so many of the things we know what to do. We know what to do, and we've got some good successes, but we have failed to implement, and we need to introduce some scale and some stimulus to get things done. That inquiry made 12 recommendations. We could have done what was done in 2004 when the parliamentary inquiry under Paul Neville made 38 recommendations to government. That was a government inquiry to the parliamentary inquiry, which the government a year and a half later accepted 3 of those 38 recommendations. Said they thought that about 12 or 13 they would agree in principle. That's bureaucratic speak for, well, we might do it, but we're not sure when. And they rejected the rest. That's in 2004-05. It took them 18 months to make that response. So when we thought about doing this inquiry and making the recommendations, we didn't come up with 38 recommendations. We could have. There's more than 38 things to do, as you well know. But we came up with 12. 12 really hard, fast recommendations that need to be done. Not half done, not considered as some sort of cherry-picking arrangement, not something that will make maybe a bit of a difference. If we're going to get to zero, those 12 recommendations have to be accepted. Nothing less. And it's a challenge to do it well. I think it can be done well. It'll require a governance review to be done. And I think there's a good appetite in the states, in the Commonwealth, for that to be achieved. There is a good change. Business, I think as Scott Charlton said to us earlier, business is looking to help to participate. I know you as professionals and so many different facets in the organisation of road safety are keen to help. We want to make that difference. 30 years ago, when the college was formed, 2,888 people died in our roads. That's only 30 years ago. We're down to 1,200. So it's not unusual to think by 2050 we'll have zero, and maybe maybe by 2030, we will have all our urban areas with zero. So there is hope. We've got to do it. We've got to have the scale and the stimulus. We can do it. So I think we're on a real cusp of change. The opportunities are there, and I really think it's fantastic that the Deputy Prime Minister has come here tonight to be able to talk to us about the response, in part of the response to the inquiry. It's not easy, it won't be easy, and we all need to help to make those changes. Michael McCormack has been elected, I think, in 2010 to the Parliament. He's a newspaper editor from Wagga, a regional newspaper. Remember those? They were really good. And he ran a very good newspaper there, of course, too. He then moved into small business and ran his own business for a while. He's been an assistant minister. He was actually assistant minister assisting the previous Deputy Prime Minister, and came to the second high-level World Road Safety Conference in Brasilia in 2005, where he spent a whole week there meeting with a range of WHO and road safety specialists from all around the world. And he was a great contributor there. He's of course got, unfortunately, some reason or other, ministers get reshuffled in this country, even prime ministers apparently. But and he sort of had to go back and do a few other jobs to learn how to run the electoral commission, you might recall. And but he acquitted himself absolutely fantastically well, and it's so good to see him back as the Deputy Prime Minister with responsibility for road safety. So it's with great pleasure tonight that I introduce Michael McCormack, the Deputy Prime Minister, to speak to you.
It's always a pleasure to get introduced by Lachlan. Always a pleasure. Yes, and you're right, Lachlan. A few weeks ago, in fact, I was acting Prime Minister. A week after the change of Prime Ministers, Scott Morrison needed to go to Indonesia to sign a trade arrangement with our friends. And I stood there and I introduced myself as the acting Prime Minister, third in a week. It was true. But it's great to be here among friends. I was trying to actually listen to Lachlan. Sometimes it's great when you're actually trying to listen to Lachlan, but you've got a band like Hypnosis playing so loud that you can't actually hear him. And I was really pleased to listen to Dire Straits and Fleetwood Mac and Police. It reminded me of the time that not long after I became Deputy Prime Minister, I was at Trundle. Hands up those in the room who know where Trundle is. Oh, there's a lot of people, well, especially over this side. Fantastic. Well, Trundle is in my Riverina electorate. And each and every year, on the first Saturday in May, Trundle holds the ABBA Festival. It's fantastic. And unlike the Elvis Festival, which is held in on or about the 8th of January, which is Elvis's birthday, which is held in Parks, and a lot of people dress up. Yeah, well done, Parks. A lot of people, including myself, dress up as Elvis. Everybody, and I mean everybody, goes to Trundle and dresses up as ABBA. And so this year I found myself at Trundle once again, dressed up as Born Again Bjorn. And I was judging the fashions of the festival. And it was an interesting contest because they were coming out faster than I could judge them. And I had this sheet which had authenticity, X factor, all these different parameters that I had to judge these acts by. And I was sitting there with about 9 or 10 Annas and Fridas, and here was I, Bjorn. And this group came out, they were just wearing T-shirts, and I didn't quite think that it matched the authenticity category. And so all the fellow judges were quite busy filling out their forms, and so I leant over to the woman next to me who was looking magnificent in her Frida outfit, and I said, "Is this authentic?" And she said, "Well, of course it is." She said, "That's the cover of the 1978. Don't you know that? You're judging. How dare you judge this if you don't know that's the cover of the 1978 album?" And mentioned it, and I said, "Oh, well, look, I'm sorry, but I just..." Anyway, so I gave it 8 out of 10, and that wasn't good enough. She said, "Why are you a judge? What right do you have to judge the fashions of the festival?" She said, "This is not good enough." She said, "You shouldn't be a judge. You're not qualified." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry. And she said, "Why are you the judge?" And I said, "Well, I suppose I'm some sort of celebrity judge." And she said, "Oh, yes." She said, "And what sort of celebrity are you? Are you the local policeman?" I said, "No." She said, "Are you the local, perhaps government, councillor, mayor perhaps?" "No." She said, "Do you own the local supermarket?" I said, "No." She said, "You're old enough, you must be the principal of the local school." I said, "No, I'm not that either." Anyway, I'm continuing to judge. And she said, and she got my hand, she put her hand on mine, she said, "Stop judging, tell me who you are, tell me what right you've got to judge this." And I said, "Well, I'm the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia." And she said, "Yes, and you're full of crap too." I said, "Well, that goes with being the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia." And so I pulled out a business card and I gave it to her, and it had Michael McCormack, the Honourable Michael McCormack indeed, Deputy Prime Minister of Australia. And she said, "You found that? Give me another one." And of course, when you're wearing a Bjorn outfit, there's not too many pockets. I didn't have another card. And she said, "See, I told you, you're full of crap." And I said, "Okay, I'm full of crap." Anyway, did the judging, that was all good. Half an hour later, I'm up on the big stage. I'm announcing the winner of the Fashions of the Festival. And they introduced me as Michael McCormack, the Honourable indeed, Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, member for Riverina. So I went there and I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is fantastic." I said, "This is just great." I said, "Trundle is only a little town, 600 population, it's swelled to 6,000. You are all bringing money to the town. Now next year we're going to have an election, and I want you, I implore you, I beg of you to take a chance on me." And it just kept going. Yes, you can imagine. I gave my speech, I announced the winners, and that was fantastic. I'm weaving my way back through the crowd, and said Frida has come up and she said, "Oh my goodness, I am so sorry." She said, "I cannot believe that you are actually the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia. How silly do you look?" She said, "But isn't this fantastic?" She said that the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, our great nation, can look as silly as you do and actually hold the title. So she said, "This just makes me so great to be an Australian, so fantastic." And she said, "Can I get a selfie?" So there you go. But look, I'm not here to talk about ABBA. But although Hypnosis are doing a good job, and later on, if the crowd is willing, I might be able to sing a tune or two. I do a lot better rendition of Suspicious Minds, trust me, Elvis Presley. But when you're the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, and there's a bit of leaking going on out of cabinet and all sorts of things being written about you, it doesn't pay well to actually sing Suspicious Minds amongst a crowd as large as this, because somebody might get out a phone and actually video it and send it to Scott Morrison, and then I won't be the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be here, and we are all here for a common cause, and that is road safety. And certainly I'm sitting next to Nick. I'm sitting in between Nick and Lachlan, and they are absolutely passionate, as you all are, about road safety. We are all committed to making sure that we work towards zero. We are all committed to making sure that the 1,227 deaths on our roads last year is not repeated this year or next year or any other year after. We need to make sure that we get it down to zero. And we can do that. We can do that by various means. You do it by your advocacy. Peter Fraser, I can see him over there wearing his yellow tie, wearing his yellow badge. He heads up the Sarah group, named in honour of his beautiful daughter, whose life was tragically taken when she was actually travelling to my hometown, Wagga Wagga, to attend university. And Sarah's memory lives on through Peter's hard work and advocacy for the safer Australian roads and highways. And Peter, I always commend you. I think you're a wonderful fellow, and may you and everybody else in this room achieve your and our ambitions, our collective goals and desires to get that zero number road toll, because that is obviously the ultimate aim. Now, and road safety is, as always, all our priorities. And I know that the National Road Safety Strategy Inquiry has given us much to consider. I was pleased to recently launch it with Anthony Albanese, and I think our Parliament works a lot better when we work together in a bipartisan way, and I commend Anthony Albanese. He's been in Parliament a lot longer than me and doesn't dress up as ABBA or Elvis, but the fact is he is also committed to road safety. He truly is, and we accepted that in a bipartisan fashion, and we will work together on the things which we can achieve together in a bipartisan way. And I think there was no better demonstration of what we can do in a bipartisan way than just recently when, of course, people were getting needles in their strawberries, and the Parliament not only introduced legislation on the morning and got it through the House of Representatives, but in the Senate, and it was passed later that afternoon. And that goes to show what you can do when there are sensible laws and bipartisan laws that you can pass working collectively. If we can do it for that, we can do it for a whole lot of other things, and I think our nation likes it a lot better when they see us working together collaboratively for the good, for the betterment, for the greatness of our nation. And I also commend Darren Chester, one of my predecessors in this role, for his continued advocacy before, during and after holding the portfolio of Infrastructure and Transport Minister. And I know how much Darren is committed to this cause. He initiated a lot of the hard work and efforts and inquiries that I now take carriage for. And of course, we're tonight, I know that we've got Jeremy Woolley here and John Crozier, and they too, and I know they're sitting down at that table. I think I can see through the glare there. Yeah, there they are. And I know how much their powerful voices have added to the, and I'll say it's a debate about getting the 12 recommendations and what we can do as a parliament and what we can do as a nation to achieving the success that you all strive for. And I can share with you that the Australian government has resolved to undertake a national road safety governance review as recommended by the inquiry. So that is something that we thank you. And the result of this review will help to inform decisions on the implementation of the other recommendations. I note that Lachlan said that a previous inquiry had 38 recommendations. I appreciate the fact that he told me, well, we could have had 50. It reminds me a little bit of the biblical tale when Moses was coming down from the mount, and he was talking about the 20 commandments. And he's walking down the hill towards his people, having got the message from the good Lord. 20 commandments, and he dropped one of the stone tablets. And he said, 10 commandments. My God, I don't know what was on the other 10. Imagine how boring life would be if we had 20 to follow. But look, there are 12 recommendations. They are important. They're important to you. They're important to me. They're important to our nation. And we will, as I say, pass through that governance review, see what recommendations that I'm given, and we will work towards a response in the not too distant future. Today, I also announced, and I appreciate that my time's up. I've nearly spoken for as long as Lachlan, but you all know that I've been a lot funnier. I have been a lot funnier, but today we announced the Office of Future Transport Technologies. If you're going to have an impressive organisation, you give it an impressive title and it has an impressive acronym. But that particular office will certainly work with the department, with the government and with other key stakeholders to see how we can adapt to change, what sort of legislation we need to implement as far as keeping on track and ahead of the game as future technologies help us determine how road safety should and will be treated in the future. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I really appreciate that you've all come out. You all have a collective aim. I also pay tribute in advance to the award winners tonight because they are the best of the best. They are leading the way as far as making sure that road safety is one of the number one issues for our nation, for our people, because each and every one of us gets affected, is affected, has been affected by road trauma, by road tragedy, and we don't want it to continue. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got a list of jokes here to see if I can do a better job, but I won't.
He had to Google his.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've got them on the list here.